Okay, inverted flight is something a lot of people want to be able to do. Now, when you're starting inverted flight, one thing to note is that the only thing that really changes when you're first starting is your elevator is backwards. Instead of giving up elevator to make the airplane go up, you're going to give down elevator. So you're actually going to push that stick forward. One thing that a lot of people get confused with is actually your aileron doesn't change when you're inverted. You can see if I'm flying upright and I want to turn right, I just give right aileron and pull through the turn. Similarly, if you fly inverted and you want to turn right, you're still going to give right aileron and then push through the turn. The only thing that really changes is that up elevator. Now the rudder is backwards, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but for now, when you're first learning, you're just going to want to fly around inverted by pushing through the turns and using that aileron to turn you left and right, the exact same way you do as when you're upright. So you can basically go through all of the other videos I just did on flying circuits, procedure turns, figure eights, and you're going to want to practice all of those inverted. You're going to want to be able to do figure eights inverted, circuits inverted, procedure turns inverted, and do all of those things comfortably inverted. You can see here I'm just flying figure eights, basic simple figure eights. I'm not even touching the throttle of the rudder right now. And that's the best way to start, is get the throttle set, leave it alone. Don't use your rudder at this point because it does get a little bit tricky. Inverted flying, when you do use your rudder, the rudder is reversed. So you see, when you're normally flying away, if I want to turn right, I'm going to give right rudder for a right rudder turn. If I'm flying inverted, that would have been a left rudder command. So you can see here, if I want to continue turning, if I go right, it's going to go the other direction now. It's turning what we would call normally left. So when you start actually flying inverted, it gets confusing because you're going to have to actually use that rudder and that aileron together. So you can see here I'm using both to keep the turns really tight. I'm actually giving what would turn the airplane left, I'm using right rudder, but I'm also keeping the wings kind of level using a little bit of right aileron. So it does get a little bit confusing. No real tips and tricks on this either, other than just keep practicing that rudder. The best way to practice rudder when you're inverted is to not use the ailerons at all. Is just practice using that rudder and turning. So you can see here using a lot of left rudder to turn the airplane right inverted, and just using the ailerons just to keep the wings level. So flying your circuit with just straight the rudder, and it does get challenging because the airplane now, when you're flying rudder, can always be a little bit more sensitive to stalling. So keep the airplane, if you're flying it in real, up high enough so that you're a mistake or two high, so you can get out of it. So right rudder, left rudder. I'm just kind of demonstrating the stick movements so you can see what you're supposed to do when you're flying. So when you're first starting out, again, just keep flying with those ailerons, just bank and push the way you want to turn, and then eventually you'll start combining the rudder in there as well, and you can keep the banks really steep, and you can transition into knife edge flight really well if you get comfortable with your rudder inverted. So keep